Alright, I got a repair to do tonight. This is a 2014 GMC Terrain with 100,000 miles on it. A lot of little things are starting to go wrong with this car, but thankfully nothing major has gone wrong with it yet, knock on wood. But the reason why it's in the shop tonight is I got an engine code the other day, P0013 and P0014, which that is an extremely common engine code to get on these GMC Terrains, especially when you're getting up there, 90, 100,000 miles, and so on. So what is P0013? P0013 is that the ECM detects exhaust camshaft OCV has an open or short circuit. And P0014 is a direct result from P0013. So those two are kind of linked together. Now, 99% of the time, it's going to be this exhaust solenoid, which this is a pretty simple thing to do, which we're going to go over in a minute. But you can actually get a kit for the exhaust solenoid and the intake solenoid, which I'm just going to replace them both. On Amazon right now, they're going for about $25. So this should correct your problem. And why I believe this has happened, some other people have said it online as well. When these cars get up to 100,000 miles, for whatever reason, they start to run a little bit dirty. The oil is getting dirty. I changed the oil 6,000 miles ago, and it's getting a little dirty, getting a little sloppy, and it just kind of clogs these things up, and they just fail over time. So, thankfully they're cheap. It's a simple job to do, so we're going to do that. Now, the tools you're going to need for tonight, you're going to need some basic hand tools. You're going to need some sockets, maybe a pair of channel locks, some small screwdrivers. Other than that, if you have a basic set of tools, this is absolutely something that you can handle. So let's get started. Alright, so first thing we need to do is to remove this air box, and you can simply do this with a flathead screwdriver. Now, I believe there's two hose clamps that you got to take off. There's one right here. Simply take your flathead screwdriver, loosen up this hose clamp, and then it should pop right off like so. And then there's a second hose clamp down here, which we're going to have to loosen up and pop off as well. I'll take you in there and give you a closer look. Alright, this is the air box right here, and if you trace this down in this dark little crevasse right here, you'll see that there is a flathead screw, which that is connected to that hose clamp. So again, just take your flathead screwdriver and loosen up this hose clamp. Next, we're going to need to remove this little hose that goes into the air box right here, and this is extremely simple to take out, so simply grab it, wiggle it from side to side, back and forth a little bit, and it will pop right out. And now's a good time to inspect the O-ring on there. If that O-ring looks worn, then you should replace that as well. So with those two clamps removed and this hose removed, we should be able to rock this thing out of here. Hopefully I'm not forgetting anything. There we are. Alright, a quick note with the air box. In order to remove it out of here, as long as you have those two hose clamps off and that one hose disconnected, it will come out. Just, there are kind of like these push pins that keep the air box in place in the back, so you may need to work this from side to side and, use a little bit of force to pull it out of there. As you can see there, kind of like the rubber grommets that kind of hold it in place. So, don't be afraid to get a little bit aggressive with that. So with that out of the way, the next thing we need to do is protect our throttle body. It's really important that you don't let any debris fall into your throttle body. Now, you could do a couple things. You could take a shop towel or a paper towel, put it over it, and then put a rubber band around it like so. Or if you got a rubber glove laying around, you could simply stretch it out, put it over the throttle body. Now that is protected. Next thing you want to do is remove your oil cap. A little bit of water in there and some sludge. I don't know what it is about these cars, but around 100,000 miles. They get very sludgy. I don't like that. Don't like that at all. But anyway, with that oil cap off, you should be able to lift off this cover. So with this cover, it's the same idea as the air box. There are these rubber grommets and the little metal rods that kind of keep this panel in place. So again, you're going to have to use a little bit of force to pull this up and out, but we can get that out of the way. Now, you want to make sure you don't let anything fall in your oil fill hole. So you can take the cap and just thread it back in there. Make sure we don't get any debris in there. And that's as far as we need to go. Now we have access to the exhaust solenoid and the intake solenoid. Now the intake solenoid is gray and the exhaust solenoid is black. Okay, so with that plastic cover removed and we've reinstalled our oil fill plug so we don't get any debris into our engine oil, we now have access to our solenoids. And you also have access to your spark plugs, your coil packs, and a lot of other components if you need to access them. So, which solenoid is which? The solenoid that is towards the rear of the car is going to be your exhaust solenoid. That's the one which we're getting codes for. Now, the one in the front is your intake solenoid. It's not reading a code, but you know, we're at 100,000 miles, and for $25, if we can replace both of these while we're in here, I think it's a good idea to do so. Now, here is one specialized tool that you are going to want to have for this job, and this is extremely cheap. You can buy these at Harbor Freight. I'll leave a link in the description in this video where you can buy these. This is just a simple right-hand pick. The reason you're going to need a right-hand pick is to remove these electrical connectors. Now, the engineers at GM are scumbags, and they don't allow you to get in here with a simple flathead screwdriver and take off this connector. What you're going to have to do, you're going to have to take a right-hand pick or some other type of tool like this. You're going to have to come underneath this plug, and you can feel there's like a little clip. You're going to have to take this pick under here, push out, and try and lift up that little tab, and then you should be able to get this connector off. Now, I've already loosened up and removed this connector, but just to give you an idea of what you're trying to do, take your pick. You see this little clip right here? You're going to want to take your pick and just push that back like so, and then pull this plug up. It's a little bit of a pain, but you know, it is what it is. It's just GM being GM. So do the same thing on the exhaust side. Front one again is the intake side. May take a couple tries to get this right, or get this off rather. Okay, that's off. We didn't break anything. Good. So now, you know, before I go any further, I want to make sure I don't get these two plugs mixed up, because that would be pretty bad. So I'm going to take the one for the exhaust side, and I'm actually going to grab a zip tie and zip tie this towards the seating compartment of the car. Just to make sure I don't get these mixed up, because you definitely don't want to get these mixed up. So now we're going to need to get in here and remove the bolts for these solenoids. The only thing I'm noticing is that there are some debris in here, which you definitely don't want to let those debris drop into the engine. So what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to go get my air wand, and I'm just going to blow some air in here. If you have a can of keyboard duster, that'd be a good idea as well, but you're just trying to make sure that there's no debris that will fall into your engine. Alright, so let's try our hand at removing the intake solenoid. So what you're going to want is a 10mm socket on an extension. It does not have to be a deep socket. So let's see if we can break this loose. Alright, so I'm not able to pull a solenoid out of here by hand, so what I'm going to do is just take a simple pair of needle nose pliers. That's something probably everybody would have in their toolbox. I'm going to put a good grip on this solenoid and just work it to the left and right a little bit while putting some upward pull. And there we are. Pops right out like so. Oh wow. You should see all the gunk on this. Wow. Yeah, that's what I don't like about these cars. And I keep up with the scheduled maintenance on this car. Oil changes, you know, about every 8,000-9,000 miles, and wow, look at all the crud on that. Wow. And that one wasn't even thrown a code. Now, you could try and clean this. You may be able to get away with cleaning this, but, you know, for $25, I just think it's worth it to replace these parts. If it was the EGR, that's a different story. EGR valves, you know, you're talking usually in the hundreds of dollars, and I've had good success with removing those and cleaning those, but as for these solenoids, just replace them. Alright, so here's the new solenoid, and on this new solenoid you can see that there's a little O-ring on here. Now it's important that you lubricate that O-ring. You can use oil, you can use a little dab of grease. I have some assembly lube, and I'm just going to do a little dab of that on that O-ring. Make sure my camera's in focus here. Just going to spread that out over the O-ring. And this will just help protect the O-ring as we seat this valve. It'll help it slide down into position. And you should get into the habit of doing that with any kind of O-ring, especially on oil filters, fuel filters. So now, let's put that back in the cavity here, very carefully. And again, we're putting the gray one in because we just took the gray one out. The gray one is your intake solenoid. Alright, I'm not putting too much pressure on there. Maybe I'm putting like, I don't know, 8-10 foot-pounds on there. There probably is a torque spec out there somewhere, but I'm happy with that. That is at the same height as the exhaust solenoid. So now let's replace the exhaust solenoid, and it's just going to be the same process. Again, 10mm ratchet with an extension. Crack that loose. Loosen up that nut all the way. Feel it pop. Let's see what kind of gunk we have on here behind door number 1. Yeah, there's a good bit of sludge on there. See all that sludge right there? That's probably part of what's causing our code, and also, you know, car has 100,000 miles on it, but, you know, just drives me nuts the amount of sludge that these cars produce in their engines. Alright, so now that we have these 2 new solenoids in place, you can go ahead and reinstall the electrical connectors. I'm just going to squirt a little bit of dielectric grease on these connectors. It doesn't hurt while I'm here. That's one. And I know this green one is going to go towards the exhaust side because we tied that up earlier on. These zip ties are actually pretty cool. These are reusable zip ties. I don't know where I got these, but kind of liking them. Alright, same thing, a little bit of lube. I actually am noticing that the colors are a little bit different on these electrical connections, so if you do get mixed up, purple goes to your exhaust solenoid. It's a good idea to wipe up any oil that may have spilt on the head of your engine. Good idea to just inspect things, take a look at your belt, see any leaks, anything wrong with any of the hoses. Everything looks okay for a 100,000 mile car. So now you just need to reassemble everything in the reverse order in which it was taken off, and then we'll start the car, we'll clear the code, and see what happens. Alright, if you're doing this project in the garage, make sure you open up a garage door. It's 18 degrees out, but it's really important that you get some fresh air flowing in. Don't want to be breathing in that nasty exhaust. That stuff will kill you. So let's turn the key, see if she starts up. Always like to give the ECM a second to cycle. Fires right up. That's a good sign. I don't see any check engine lights, which that is good. But if you had a check engine light, you know, one of the past few times that you started your car, it's definitely stored in the computer. I'm just kind of keeping an eye on the idle right now, which, knock on wood, it sounds like it's idling pretty darn smooth right now. I'll give that a second, see what that does. Idling right under 1,000 RPMs. Needle's really steady. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Now, I do have my code reader hooked up, so let's clear the codes. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. Alright, so we're scanning the car for codes right now. I haven't cleared anything yet. Let's just make sure we're not getting any other codes. One fault. So P0013, that's the same code we had before. We also had P0014, so it's good we're not getting P0014. I suspect that it's in here right now just because we haven't cleared the codes, which that's extremely normal. You know, if you get a fault in your car and it's kind of reoccurring, it will stay stored in the computer until that's corrected and you clear the code, if I understand that correctly. So let's erase. Erase, yes. Erase, done. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unplug this, I'm going to take the car for a little test drive, and then I'll rescan again and just make sure we're not getting that code. Alright, so I just took this car for a test drive, and let me tell you, it's running like a brand new car. idling extremely smooth. It's shifting on point, just everything feels solid. So let's double check that there's nothing else going on. Let's just rescan again to be sure that everything else looks okay. And we are not getting any codes. No codes, awesome. So that is a good repair. Now, before I finish off this video, let me take you inside one more time and we'll take a look at those solenoids again. Just showing you again all the crud on these solenoids. Solenoid on the left is the exhaust solenoid, that's the code we were getting. And you can just see the coffee grounds on there. That's pretty ratchet. And again, on the intake side, you can see all the coffee grounds on there too. This one definitely failed internally, in addition to all the crud that was collected on that screen right there. But I'm just so happy we got this job done. It was really simple, and this is something definitely that anybody could do. Again, just going over the tools one more time. You're going to want a 10mm socket, a flathead screwdriver, a right hand pick, a pair of needle nose pliers, some safety glasses, an air compressor, or a can of like air duster, and a scan tool. If you need any of these tools, I'll leave links in the description below. And that's it for tonight's video. Thanks for watching, and I hope this video helped you.